Somewhere in the middle of the Nevada desert, past cracked salt flats and sun-bleached mountains, there is a place that does not officially exist. It has no address on most government maps. For decades, the United States government refused to even acknowledge its name. And yet it has become the most talked about military installation on the planet. A place where the boundaries between classified science, Cold War paranoia, and genuine public deception blurred into something almost unrecognizable. That place is Area 51. The full name, for those who have only ever heard the shorthand, is the Nevada Test and Training Range, located near a dry lake bed called Groom Lake. It sits roughly 83 miles northwest of Las Vegas, deep within a restricted zone that the government officially refers to as the Nevada Test and Training Range. The base itself is surrounded by motion sensors, armed guards, warning signs that authorize the use of deadly force, and a no-fly zone that extends for miles in every direction. For most of the 20th century, the government's official position was simple: this place does not exist. That denial, maintained for decades in the face of mounting evidence, is where the story truly begins. The origins of Area 51 trace back to the early years of the Cold War, a period when the United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a silent, terrifying competition for technological and military dominance. By the early 1950s, American intelligence agencies were deeply concerned about Soviet military capabilities, particularly the development of nuclear weapons and long-range bombers. The problem was simple and urgent. How do you spy on a country that will shoot down anything that enters its airspace? The answer came from a collaboration between the Central Intelligence Agency and Lockheed's secretive engineering division, known as the Skunk Works. Together, they conceived of an aircraft that could fly so high that no existing Soviet weapon could reach it. That aircraft was the Lockheed U-2, a sleek, fragile-looking plane capable of flying at altitudes exceeding 70,000 feet. To test and develop this aircraft in complete secrecy, they needed a location that was remote, flat, and completely hidden from public view. In 1955, a team led by Lockheed engineer Kelly Johnson scouted the Nevada desert and found exactly what they were looking for: a dry lake bed called Groom Lake. The location was perfect. It was isolated, it had a natural runway surface, and it was already adjacent to a nuclear testing zone, which meant the entire region was already restricted. Construction began almost immediately, and within months a functional airstrip and a handful of buildings had appeared in the desert. The base was given a grid designation from a map of the area: Area 51. The U-2 program was one of the most consequential intelligence operations of the Cold War. Flying at altitudes that were previously thought impossible for sustained flight, the aircraft provided American intelligence with unprecedented photographic coverage of Soviet military installations, airfields, missile sites, and industrial facilities. The images gathered by U-2 flights fundamentally shaped American strategic planning throughout the late 1950s, but the program carried an enormous risk. Soviet radar could detect the aircraft even if their weapons could not reach it, and the Soviets knew something was flying over their territory. The United States government, when pressed about unidentified aircraft sightings, consistently denied any knowledge of unusual flights. They attributed sightings to weather phenomena, atmospheric anomalies, and misidentified conventional aircraft. This was a deliberate, coordinated deception campaign. Then, on May 1, 1960, the deception collapsed. A U-2 piloted by Francis Gary Powers was struck by a Soviet surface-to-air missile over Sverdlovsk. Powers survived, was captured, and the wreckage of the aircraft was recovered largely intact. The Eisenhower administration initially stuck to the cover story, claiming the aircraft was a weather research plane that had gone off course. When the Soviets produced Powers and the wreckage, the lie became impossible to maintain. The incident caused an international crisis, derailed a planned summit between Eisenhower and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, and exposed the extent to which the United States government had been systematically lying to both the Soviet Union and its own citizens. It was one of the first major public demonstrations that the government was willing to construct and maintain elaborate falsehoods in the name of national security. After the U-2 program, Area 51 became the testing ground for a succession of increasingly advanced and visually bizarre aircraft. The A-12, which was the predecessor to the famous SR-71 Blackbird, was tested at Groom Lake throughout the early 1960s. It was a triangular, delta-winged aircraft that flew at speeds exceeding Mach 3, meaning more than 3 times the speed of sound, and at altitudes above 80,000 feet. When civilian pilots or people on the ground caught glimpses of these aircraft, they described things that seemed to defy conventional understanding. Objects moving at impossible speeds, changing direction abruptly, disappearing in seconds. The government's response was consistent: deny, deflect, and occasionally encourage the extraterrestrial explanation. Declassified documents released by the Central Intelligence Agency in 2013 confirmed what researchers had long suspected. A significant portion of unidentified flying object reports from the late 1950s and 1960s, particularly those filed by commercial airline pilots, were actually sightings of classified aircraft operating out of Area 51. The government knew this. And rather than clarify the situation, they allowed the alien narrative to grow, because it was a far more useful cover story than admitting the existence of aircraft that were decades ahead of anything publicly known. The deliberate cultivation of the extraterrestrial explanation was not accidental. It was a strategic choice made by people who understood that a population chasing flying saucers would not be asking the right questions about classified aerospace programs. In August 2013, the Central Intelligence Agency officially acknowledged the existence of Area 51 for the first time in a formally declassified document. The release came as part of a response to a Freedom of Information Act request filed by researchers at the National Security Archive at George Washington University. The documents confirmed the location of the base, its role in the U-2 and Oxcart programs, and provided detailed maps of the Groom Lake facility. What the documents revealed was not a base full of alien spacecraft. What they revealed was something arguably more extraordinary. A facility where the United States government had, over a period of decades, developed aircraft and technologies so advanced that they genuinely appeared to be from another world. The Oxcart program, which produced the A-12 and eventually contributed to the development of the SR-71, represented a leap in aerospace engineering that is difficult to overstate. The materials science, the propulsion systems, the radar-absorbing coatings, the navigation technology, all of it was developed in secret at a facility that officially did not exist. The documents also confirmed the systematic use of deception, not just toward foreign adversaries, but toward the American public, and even toward members of Congress who did not have the appropriate security clearances. Entire programs were funded through black budget allocations that bypassed normal congressional oversight. The scale of the institutional secrecy was, and in many ways remains, staggering. The alien mythology surrounding Area 51 did not emerge from nothing. It was fed by a combination of genuine government secrecy, deliberate misdirection, and the very human tendency to fill information vacuums with the most dramatic explanation available. The 1947 Roswell incident, which occurred in New Mexico and involved the recovery of debris from a crashed object, contributed enormously to the cultural landscape that made Area 51 such fertile ground for speculation. Declassified documents later revealed that the Roswell debris was almost certainly from Project Mogul, a classified program designed to monitor Soviet nuclear tests using high-altitude balloons. The government's refusal to explain what had actually crashed, maintained for decades, transformed a classified balloon program into the foundation myth of modern alien conspiracy culture. Area 51 absorbed all of that cultural energy. Former employees who worked at the base, bound by security oaths that carried severe legal penalties, could not speak about what they had actually done. Their silence was interpreted as confirmation of the most extreme theories. When people like Bob Lazar emerged in 1989 claiming to have worked on alien spacecraft at a facility near Groom Lake called Site S4, the story spread with extraordinary speed because it fit perfectly into a narrative that had been building for 40 years. The actual truth, that Area 51 was and remains a testing facility for classified aerospace and weapons technology, is in many ways more unsettling than the alien alternative. Because it means that the government's capacity for sustained systematic deception directed at its own citizens is not a conspiracy theory. It is a documented historical fact. The files are there, the programs are named, the lies are on record. And the facility, whatever it is testing today, remains as secret as ever.